Welcome to the Change Guitar channel. Today I will play the Seymour Hersh audio tape from a link on Wikileaks Twitter covering the Seth Rich murder of 2016 and the subsequent fake Russia conspiracy that has since plagued our public intellectual culture, of which has been going on year 3 of a sustained assault on the public mind by all of our dominant media, political, and corporate and intelligence institutions. Allow me to briefly cover Hersh's record and to provide you an objective, critical frame found nowhere else on the internet, or to my knowledge, I have not seen it. I would love to see different voices. I try to sample as many as I can. Unfortunately, I see a limited frame. Here, I'm going to try to provide you a certain background on Seymour Hersh and a more critical analysis of how to look at this audio. Or hopefully that will be made more accessible to you. Okay, Seymour Hersh, a sort of paragon of investigative journalism, a legend of sorts, widely regarded for his integrity and insights into certain events or happenings in American history. What stories has he broken? The tragic My Lai massacre of over 500 Vietnamese civilians in the village of My Lai, where women, men, children, 17 of those women were in fact pregnant, murdered, including the rape of some women and young girls on May 16, 1968. The perpetrators were part of Charlie Company on a search and destroy mission, and destroy they did. And for a slight frame of reference, the Tet Offensive was launched months prior in January of 1968, where said Charlie Company suffered 28 casualties. That said, Seymour Hersh broke that story on November of 1969. Seymour Hersh also exposed the secret bombing of Cambodia. If you reference his New York Times article, August 8, 1973, titled, "Senators Are Told U.S. Bombed Cambodia Secretly After Invasion of 1970, end quote. These secret strikes were authorized in March 1969 for an invasion that began May 1st, 1970. Seymour Hersh broke that story. The CIA spying on anti-war activists and other dissidents in the United States in direct violation of its charter. You can find that article in the New York Times by said Seymour Hersh, December 22nd, 1974, titled "Huge CIA Operation Reported in U.S. Against Anti-War Forces, Other Dissidents in Nixon Years," end quote. The CIA kept intelligence files, in fact, on 10,000 Americans. These operations began as far back as the 1950s, including break-ins, wiretappings, and the surreptitious inspection of mail. Seymour Hersh broke that story. Seymour Hersh, so he breaks the My Lai massacre 1969, the secret bombing of Cambodia 1973, CIA domestically spying 1974. Well, he also broke on September 20th, 1974, in the New York Times. The CIA financed $8 million worth of clandestine activities in Chile to take out one Salvador Allende, whose economic philosophy was not in line with the proto-neoliberal order, meaning neoliberalism in its infancy. This neoliberal order was taking shape as the U.S. moved to more financialized diktats globally, and its foreign policy reflected such priorities. Seymour Hersh also broke the torture of Abu Ghraib prisoners in Iraq on April 30th, 2004, published in The New Yorker. Moreover, he broke the story on Obama lying about the narrative surrounding the death of Osama bin Laden, who received mafia justice and not his day in court. And we can go on and on. Seymour Hersh has a memoir that you can look up on any, the many websites that sell books. I don't want to advertise for a website. He published a memoir where you can read about that and more, the many stories he broke and the many stories he didn't get to break, which tends to be even more interesting at times. Despite this prodigious contribution to the American public intellectual culture, in which we do thank Seymour Hersh, that intellectual culture shared by all of us, there are any number of stories that he helped suppress, unfortunately, either due to a personal calculation and or a certain kind of philosophy. For example, shortly after Nixon resigned, on August 9, 1974, Hersh got a tip from an emergency room surgeon that Patty Nixon, her name was Pat, yes, a real human being, was beaten so badly by former President Richard Nixon, who had beaten her previously. She had to go to the emergency room. There was photographic evidence suppressed. And if you want a frame of reference, in the mid-1970s, the battering of women was considered a private matter, tragically. But courageous women did take to the streets. They did protest. They did create self-help groups. But not Seymour Hersh. He helped suppress that conversation. The 2 to 4 million women beaten in their homes annually. Abandoned. He said at the time he only reported what affected policy, not personal foibles. I happen to agree with that philosophy to a certain extent, but it must be said that the battering of women was a policy matter. It was a deeply personal matter, and for all the many women who felt isolated and needed solidarity, and Hersh was unwilling to give that solidarity at a critical moment, is a travesty and a tragedy in the history and the annals of journalism. To his credit, he has in recent years, or more recently, commented that he regrets suppressing that story. But let me qualify further in another sense to give you another aspect to frame this audio tape that you will listen to, perhaps. The protection of sources. Listen to this audio with that in mind. Seymour Hersh protecting sources. He has sources. He has people that talk to him. Let's think in those terms. In 2010, for example, Hersh had sensitive information from sources on the inside, on Dick Cheney. He even wanted to publish a book. But he had to tell his publishers, many of those people who remained in their jobs under Obama, as they had those jobs under George W. Bush, they were intimidated. They were scared. So Hersh couldn't publish because his sources were so terrified of the Obama administration. With the consequences of being found out, that being said, let us listen to the audio that was leaked without Seymour Hersh's authorization or knowledge, allegedly. He says, I quote, "I am loyal to the people who talk to me," end quote. Now, here is the recording of the Seth audio, the Seth Rich audio / Russia conspiracy promoted by Wikileaks on their Twitter. I will provide the link below in the comments section, provided by one Ed Butowski, the person Seymour Hersh is talking to in the audio. Seymour Hersh has since publicly disavowed this tape as gossip and hearsay. You be the judge.
About the kid, I'll tell you what I know. What I know comes off an FBI report. Don't ask me how you can figure out I've been around long enough. The kid gets, I don't think he was murdered. I don't think he was murdered because of what he knew. The kid's a nice boy, 27. He was not an IT expert, but he learned stuff. He was a data programmer, but he learned stuff. And so he's living on one street, he's living in a very rough neighborhood. And in the exact area where he been, there have been about 10, I'm sure you know this, there have been about 8 or 9 or 10 violent, robberies, most of them with somebody brandishing a gun. And the kid's hands, I'm telling you, I'm sure you know, his hands were marked up. The cops concluded he fought off the people, tried to run, and they shot him twice in the back with a .22, small caliber. And then the kids that did it ran. They got scared, didn't take his will. Okay, so what the cops do this, and here's what nobody knows, what I'm telling you. Now, maybe you know something about it. When you have a death like that, DC cops, if you're dead, you generally don't just go, you have to find out what's going on. You have to get to the kid's apartment and see what you can find. If he's dead, you don't need a warrant, but most cops get a warrant because they don't know if the guy has a roommate. You need a warrant. So they get a warrant. I'm just telling you, there is such a thing. They go in the house, they can't do much with his computer, it's password, the cops don't know much about it. So the DC cops, they have a cyber unit in DC, and they're more sophisticated. They come and look at it. The idea is maybe he's had a series of exchanges with somebody who says, I'm going to kill you, motherfucker, over a girl. And they can't get in. The cyber guys do a little better, but they can't make sense of it. So they call the FBI cyber unit. The DC unit, the Washington field office, is a hot shit unit. The guy running the Washington field office, he's like a 3-star at an army base. He's already looking for 4. You know what I mean? He's going to go with a top job. There's a cyber unit there that's excellent. What you get in a warrant, the public information you get in a warrant doesn't include, it does not include the affidavit underlying why you're going in, what the reasons are. That's almost never available on. I can tell you that. The existence of a warrant is a public document 99% of the time. So, on the same warrant, they call in the Fed. The Feds get through, and here's what they find. This is according to the FBI report. What they find is he makes first of all, you have to know some basic facts. One of the basic facts is there's no DNC or protested email that exists beyond May 22nd, May 21st, 22nd, the last email from either one of those groups. And so what the report says is sometime in late spring, we're talking about June, summer's in June 21st. Late spring would be after, I presume, I don't know. I just say it says late spring, early summer. He makes contact with Wikileaks. That's in his computer, and he makes contact. Now, I have to be careful because I met Julian and Julian 10, 12 years. I stay the fuck away from people like that. And he's invited me, and when I'm in London, I always get a message, come see me at the Ecuadorian ambassador, and there's no fucking way I'm going there. I got enough trouble without getting photographed. But every fucking day, he's under total surveillance by everybody. But anyway, they found what he had done. He had submitted a series of documents, of emails, some juicy emails from the DNC. And, by the way, all this shit about the DNC, whether hacked or wasn't hacked, but whatever happened, the Democrats themselves wrote this shit. You know what I mean? All I know is that he offered a sample, an extensive sample, I'm sure dozens of emails, and said, I want money. That later, WikiLeaks did get the password. He had a Dropbox, a protected Dropbox, which isn't hard to do. I mean, you don't have to be a wizard, IT wizard. He was certainly, not a dumb kid. and they got access to the Dropbox. He also, this is also in the FBI report, he'd also let people know with whom he was dealing. I don't know how he dealt. I'll tell you about WikiLeaks in a second. I don't know how he dealt with the WikiLeaks and the mechanism, but he also, the word was passed according to the FBI report. I also shared this box with a couple of friends. So if anything happens to me, it's not going to solve your problem. Okay? I don't know what that means. I don't know what he was. Anyway, but WikiLeaks got access, and before he was killed, I can tell you right now, Brennan's an asshole. I've known all these people for years. Clapper's sort of a bitter guy, but now rocket scientist. The NSA guy is a fucking moron. And they, the trouble with all those guys is that the only way they're going to make it to a board or two and get, hired by SAIC to deliver some fat cat contracts is if Hillary stayed in. With Trump, they're gone. They're done. They're going to live on their pension. They're not going to make it. I got to tell you, guys in that job, they don't want to live on their pension. They want to be on boards like they're make $600,000 for doing the floor business. I have somebody on the inside. I've been around a long time and I write a lot of stuff. I have somebody inside who will go and read a file for me. This person is unbelievably accurate and careful. He's a very high-level guy. He'll do a favor. You're just going to have to trust me. I have what they call it in my business, long-form journalism. I have a narrative of how that whole fucking thing began. It's a Brennan operation. It was an American disinformation. And the fucking president, at one point when they even started telling the press, they were back briefing the press. The head of the NSA was going and telling the press, this fucking cocksucker Rogers, was telling the press that we even know who in the GRU, the Russian military intelligence service, leaked it. All bullshit. They were telling these I worked at the New York Times for fucking years, and triple the fucking New York Times that they have smart guys, but they're totally beholden on sources. If the president or the head of the CIA tells them something, they actually believe it. I was hired at the Times to write about it, to go after the war, in the Vietnam War in '72, because they were just locked in. So that's what the Times is. These guys run the fucking Times. And Trump's not wrong. I wish he would calm down and have a better press secretary. They don't have to be so. Trump's not wrong to think they all fucking lied about him. I can tell you right now.
Okay, so the audio cuts out. You decide. Now, there's some names you can look up. John Brennan, James Clapper. He refers to Rogers, who was the head of the NSA. You can look these names up to get a frame of reference on Wikipedia, get a general biographical background. Love you all. Good day and good luck.